Apple and Google make billions of dollars by harvesting your personal data, information about you, private information. So it's not surprising how they like to fight the coronavirus by teaming up to make a tracking app that will monitor you through your phone. What could go wrong? Fox's Matt Finn is here live with more on that. Hey, Matt.
Tucker, these two tech rivals are actually collaborating to develop software that will alert you if you cross paths with someone who has tested positive for the coronavirus. In a statement today, Apple says that this software will use existing Bluetooth technology already in our smartphones. The tracing apps will notify you if you come within a certain distance of another phone belonging to a person that tested positive for the coronavirus. The software is able to look back for 14 days to tell you where you might have come in contact with someone with COVID-19. Of course, there are a lot of questions. This technology only works if people who tested positive for the coronavirus are willing to share that personal medical information entered into a phone. Apple says some of the technology will be available next month. Today, President Trump says the tech raises privacy concerns, but he will take a look at it. Apple made the coding for this software already public so that it can be analyzed, and says if a person deletes the app, their private information is also erased. The ACLU says tracing apps could be effective in curbing the coronavirus until there is widespread and free testing. The ACLU writes in a statement, quote, "People will only trust these systems if they protect privacy, remain voluntary, and store data on an individual's device, not a centralized repository." The ACLU says it will remain vigilant to make sure tracing apps like these remain voluntary. Tucker.
Matt Finn, great to see you tonight. Thank you. And by voluntary, that means that you agree to it, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have any idea that you agreed to it. You checked a box some time ago, and that's voluntary. It's cool with the ACLU. They're looking out for you. By the way, we should say that's totally fine. And if you have any problem with it at all, you're some kind of paranoid, disloyal American. Okay? Big tech wants to track you through your phone. Health officials want immunity passports. And as we'll discuss later, they're closing down Easter. Some want bans like this and measures like this to last indefinitely, at least a year or more. What kind of country are we creating? And can we maintain any semblance of the America we knew, say, last month during the course of it? Ned Ryan is founder and CEO of American Majority. He joins us tonight. Ned, thanks so much for coming on. So we really did kind of choose the Chinese model here. We're closing down churches, restrictions on internal movement, using technology to track our own citizens. Could there may have been another model other than the Chinese model to respond to this pandemic, this Chinese pandemic?
Yeah, no, I think Sweden and some of these other countries have probably had the right approach where they've taken a responsible approach and said certain people have to be quarantined, but we're not going to shut down the entire country. I think the thing that's terrifying about all this, Tucker, is, again, we're building this Orwellian surveillance state in which we're combining big government and big tech. What was it? Reagan said some of the most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government, I'm here to help." I think an even more terrifying version of that is, "I'm from the government and big tech, and I'm here to help." And if you hear those words, "Dear God, run like the devil's one step behind you," I do not trust them. And Tucker, when you hear about a national surveillance, coronavirus surveillance system being proposed by some in the White House, you hear about immunity cards. I mean, this is very troubling stuff. And I have to tell you, I think Trump should bench Fauci for what he said about the immunity cards and also the stupidity of it. How are you actually going to have enough people with immunity cards if you're calling for quarantining and people sheltering in place? It makes absolutely no sense. And at some point, we as the American people have to decide, are we going to wholesale surrender our liberties in hopes for a little security against a virus that I do not think will have the mortality rates of the Asian or Hong Kong flu? And if we do surrender our rights, we don't deserve to be a free people.
At some point, I hope the public will be consulted on this. I mean, it seems like power has moved into the hands of a lot of unelected people, in some cases impressive people like Dr. Anthony Fauci, who I think is a very impressive person and a nice person, by the way. We've interviewed him. But he's not elected by anybody.
That's
and
right.
You've got to kind of wonder about a system in which people who haven't been elected, about whom we know nothing for the most part, are making the consequential decisions. Is that a democracy?
No, it's not. And I think this is where some of these red state governors have to take the bull by the horns and say, but by the 1st of May, we are going to, in a very responsible way, have a red state revolt in which we open up a lot of our states, open up restaurants, open up businesses in a responsible way. Masks required, all of these things. But we have to, in the second half of April, I really think, flatten the media hysteria curve Stop listening to models that are filled with garbage assumptions and garbage data, and let's get some real stats and have a real conversation. And let's get back, because my concern, Tucker, in all of this, if we continue down this path, we might end up with more suicides and bankruptcies than actual coronavirus deaths as we are destroying our economy. We have 17 million Americans who are already unemployed in the first 3 weeks of this. We continue down this path, the cure will be far more deadly than the disease.
At the very least, we should demand actual evidence to justify these decisions.
That's right.
And in fact, next week, we're going to be interviewing a series of governors and political leaders and just asking them respectfully, but where's the science to justify what you're doing? And maybe they'll have a good answer. Maybe they won't. We'll find out. Ned, great to see you tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.